Welcome to the Howie Carr Show. I'm Aaron Chadbourne, filling in for the vacationing Howie Carr. He will be back tomorrow, broadcasting live from Cape Gunworks with Toby Leary. And today we have a great show planned for you, starting with our first guest who's joining us now on the phone. She's the Congresswoman for New York's 21st District and chair of the House Republican Conference down in Washington. She is Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. Congresswoman, welcome to the Howie Carr Show.
Great to be with you, Aaron.
Always good to talk to you, Elise. So I saw you speak at the Republican National Convention. Thought you did a great job. You're obviously out campaigning for President Trump to return to the White House. A lot's changed since that convention speech. There's a new candidate. The race has changed up a bit. What are you seeing as you're out there campaigning, and what do you think of the state of the race?
Well, it's a really important question, Aaron, and let's take a step back. Democrats anointed Kamala Harris. Not a single Democrat primary vote was cast across this country. So they swapped out Joe Biden because Joe Biden's polls were continuing to bottom out in an act of true desperation. There's nothing more undemocratic than anointing someone without allowing people the right to vote. So, this is the Democrat Party who attacks Republicans as attacking democracy. It is an attack on democracy for Democrats to do that. With Kamala Harris on the top of the ticket, she was known as one of the least effective, one of the sort of most a failed vice president, and now the mainstream media is propping her up, trying to wipe away her entire catastrophic legislative history as well as her tenure as vice president. It's important that voters know the truth, that she is Joe Biden's open border czar. She owns this border catastrophe. And on the issue of inflation and the economy, which is a major concern no matter where you are in the country, Kamala Harris was the deciding vote for Joe Biden's Inflation Expansion Act. So the two top issues, the border and inflation, she owns the failure of the Biden-Harris administration. What's more is she was the most liberal senator in the United States Senate. So this is no moderate. This is a far-left radical liberal from San Francisco who, frankly, would make Pelosi look moderate. Kamala Harris has also supported defunding the police, which is not where the American people are on that issue. They strongly support our law enforcement. So there's a lot of discussions of these key issues, and the media is trying to wipe away her history and record on each of those important issues.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think what we've seen from the media in terms of rewriting history, in terms of trying to rehabilitate and glam up what's going on with Kamala Harris is just absurd. You couldn't make it up. I wonder, the interviews tonight, the one interview that Kamala Harris can't even do by herself, has to bring her running mate, Tim Walzer. What are your expectations? Do you think this will be a hard-hitting interview as if you were appearing on CNN, Congresswoman, or do you think it's going to be just another PR job?
Well, first of all, let's think about the fact, Aaron, that she hasn't done an interview for weeks. She's the Democrat nominee for President of the United States on the ballot in less than 70 days, and she has not sat for a major interview or any interview for that matter. That is unheard of. When you run for Congress, I was 29 years old when I ran for Congress, you sit and you do a one-on-one interview. You answer tough questions about your policy positions, why you're running. She has not done that running for President of the United States. It's absurd. And frankly, as a woman, the fact that she's doing this first major interview with Tim Walz rather than doing it alone, I find that offensive. The American people deserve to hear from her directly, answering questions from the media. And we all know that the Kamala Harris campaign, since the media was begging to have any type of opportunity, it's going to be an opportunity for the mainstream media to prop her up rather than asking tough questions. I hope they ask tough questions, but I don't anticipate that from the way this interview was set up. But I will be tuning in. But again, the fact of the matter that she has not, still today, she will not sit alone for an interview. That's absurd, and it's an affront to the American people.
What do you think is the most important question that should be posed to her? What's the tough question that you'd ask if you were conducting the interview?
The border. I would ask her about why under her watch as the open borders are when millions of illegals have poured into this country. I would ask her about that. Number two, I would ask her, she says she was the last person in the room when Joe Biden made the decision for the catastrophic Afghanistan withdrawal, which this past summer, it's been 3 years, and of course that led to the deaths of 13 servicemen and women, and she has refused to meet with or communicate with those 13 Gold Star families to answer their questions and provide transparency. Number three, the inflation crisis. Why did she vote for the Inflation Expansion Act. She cast that deciding vote. I would also ask her about her changing position on fracking. This is a candidate who opposed fracking, who supports a ban on fracking. And for the American people broadly, but particularly voters in Pennsylvania, where hundreds of thousands of jobs are dependent upon energy independence and important policies that were effective under President Trump, she needs to be held accountable for that, too. I would also ask her about her position and her record supporting defunding the police, which has been catastrophic for all communities, not just urban communities, but suburban and rural communities as well.
Well, I certainly wish that you were doing the questioning tonight instead of Dana Bash. I think you'd ask a lot more. And speaking of you asking questions, you really had, I think, one of the moments of the year when you were questioning the university presidents about the anti-Semitism that is raging on campuses across this country. Now that we're in back to school season, do you think those university presidents have learned? And what do you think colleges need to do to avoid a repeat of what we saw last academic year?
Colleges should never have allowed what happened on campuses last year to ever have occurred. You had Jewish students who were physically assaulted, who were verbally harassed, who could not go to classes. You had universities cancel classes, turn over their public spaces to the pro-Hamas mob. You had universities who allowed pro-terrorist, pro-Hamas professors to stay tenured at those universities, and you had universities continue to take foreign funds from foreign states that are supportive of the destruction of the state of Israel. It is unacceptable. And what's interesting and concerning among many aspects of those university presidents, two of which are former, is that you put up regular Americans, hardworking American workers, and you ask them the same question, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate the university's code of conduct? Without hesitation, the American people know how to answer that question. It is offensive, and it shows the moral rot and, frankly, academic and intellectual rot of our higher ed institutions that they each said verbatim, it depends on the context. So what do the schools have to do this year? Number one, they need to comply with all Title VI requirements to protect Jewish students and Jewish faculty members. Number two, they cannot allow pro-Hamas terrorists to take over public spaces. They need to enforce their own rules. You saw whether it was at Harvard, Cornell, or you go down the list, Columbia, they did not enforce their own rules. They need to make sure they take disciplinary action immediately, and they need to root out the rot of these offices of DEI, which are inherently anti-Semitic on their own. In the case of Harvard, you had hundreds of Jewish students reach out to the Office of DEI, and the Office of DEI did not even respond. That itself is anti-Semitic. And then you need to broadly look at the fact that there is something very wrong in higher education when 95% of the faculty are radical far left, and there are fewer and fewer conservatives on the faculty, on the boards, or presidents, certainly, of these universities. So there needs to be a lot more focus on ideological diversity to make sure that it's reflective of our values of who we are as Americans rather than this very, very radical pro-Hamas left, which is now the growing wing of today's Democrat Party.
Well, I think it's really important work, and you're shining an important light on it. I just wanted to ask in the final minutes that we have left, obviously with the state of the race as it is, there are a lot of people interested in knowing how the Congress is going to be reshaped by the election. Are you looking forward to growing your majority in places like Maine's 2nd District? Obviously Jared Golden is out there. He voted to impeach President Trump in a district that goes very strong for Trump. Do you think you're going to have pickup opportunities like with Austin Terrio, or how are you feeling about the prospects of growing the majority in your conference?
We feel very strongly that we're in a great position to grow our majority, and I'll start with Maine's 2nd District. You're exactly right, Aaron. This is a district that Trump carried. He will carry again. I see the polling for each of these districts, and Trump continues to do well. Austin Terrio is a great fit for the district. He's been elected at the state position currently, and he is a former NASCAR driver, deeply family-rooted in the community, and it's going to hold Jared Golden accountable for Jared Golden's failed record that's out of touch with Mainers. And it's not just Maine. I look in New York, which we flipped those 5 seats that determine the House majority. President Trump is polling strongly in each of those seats, and more importantly, our incumbents are polling strongly, as well as pickup opportunities in key seats across this country. Remember, it was House Republicans that were the last line of defense against single-party Democrat rule when we flipped flip the House. We need to maintain and pick up those seats, and we are going on offense to do so. And as I said, you can start way up in the Northeast in Maine's 2nd District. I certainly strongly support Austin Terrio, and you're going to have a lot of people and funds going in to make sure we get that across the finish line and flip that district.
One of our texters just texted in and said they tuned in and thought that it was Caroline Leavitt. I do want to give you credit. She's a former staffer of yours. She's a great friend of this show, and now she's working to help reelect President Trump. So thanks for all the work that you're doing. When you see Caroline back out there on the campaign trail, tell her we say hi.
Oh, that's great, Caroline. We're so proud of her. I'm so proud when she had the courage to run for office. She did a great job. We're proud of her as the chief spokesperson for President Trump, as the press secretary for the Trump campaign. And I'm so excited. I consider that a real compliment to say that I sound like Caroline Leavitt. She did a great job in my office, and she's doing a great job on behalf of the American people in the Trump campaign.
Congresswoman Elise, thank you so much for taking time from your busy schedule campaigning for President Trump to come join us here on the Howie Carr Show.
Thanks, Aaron.